Mr. Carter, Steven. I know
Sterling, what's going on,
it's
brother?
supposed to be more informal, but how are you, my brother?
Hey, man, it's not Hump Day, it's Thursday. It's Thursday, so
It's
we're close
Thursday. It's
to
past
the
hump day.
weekend.
We're almost to the weekend. It's
And
time
you
to
know what? You
play
know
some
what's
golf
going?
or something.
We got to make our northerner watchers a little jealous. It's gonna
Right.
drop to them today. I think it's like 74 degrees, something like that.
Exactly. It's getting
It's
up there.
crazy, beautiful
Yeah.
weather in H Town, as they call it.
And H Town. Yeah, the weather's nice. I'm looking outside right now. It's blue skies, not a cloud in the sky. So it's a good day for us to be at home or on the golf course or something and
Yeah,
not work.
I was gonna say, so I'm surprised you're not golfing today. Normally
Hey,
you
I
would
may
have,
sneak out tomorrow.
played
You never
hooky.
know. You never know. But how's your week been so far?
So far, it's a good productive week, man. It's been good. It's been really good.
So I have a question for you. When was the first time that you realized or even thought that you were a little bit different than just average?
A little bit different than just that. You know what? That's an interesting question.
I know it is.
Um, I think I think we were kind of raised in a environment that basically said you're supposed to assume that you're going to be better than every or work harder or whatever, and you just got to you were always told we were always told when we were younger that you got to work harder than the average person to get ahead. So I don't know. I think that kind of just sat in. Just got to work harder than the average person and make a way. And I don't know. I think later on in life, people started saying, "Hey, you guys are, you aren't moving in the same way as normal people do." But I never noticed it. It wasn't something that a light bulb went off. What about for you, sir?
I think that one of the things that we have to applaud our mother for doing, being a single parent and
Mhm.
all that kind of good stuff. She always was a really hard worker. And one thing she taught us that a lot of things that she taught us. One of the things she taught us was to have strong work ethics and to
Exactly.
work really really hard. And so because she was always doing so much and working so hard, I think we took it for granted. But we she kind of instilled those ethics into us. So that over time, there's so many great books that talk about this. One's called The Compounding Effect, which I love, but it talks about those small,
Yeah,
minute things that you do every single day and how it starts compounding. And so if
absolutely.
every single day you're doing 5%, 2%, 1% more than everybody else, then over time it compounds and eventually you're not just average anymore. You've gone from average to the next level and the next level and the next level. So great question. I think it just kind of started and then gradually, without even knowing it, things just started to change and then
Absolutely.
momentum kicks in, right?
The
So
momentum.
very cool, very cool. Welcome, 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 everyone. It is Motivational Thursdays, no longer Motivational Mondays anymore.
Motivational
And
Thursdays.
we are your host, Mr. Stephen Carter, MBA, and I'm Dr. Carter. And today's topic is what is today's topic? I think we were just kind of talking about it. I'm going to show it here.
Exactly.
Why be average when you can be great? Why be average when you can be great?
And
So,
so I think this is like a perfect topic to kind of run into after our topic from last week, because
yeah.
we talked about how to make 2022 your best year ever, right?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I think this is kind of more in line of kind of giving people steps to say, how do you do that? How do you become great and not just an average performer? So I think it's right on point.
I do too. I think it's a great topic. So we're going to jump right into it. If you are watching, we want to hear from you. Just say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. We always like to get as much feedback, comments, engagement from our watchers and viewers because we thrive off of your input and your influence. So, all right. So the first thing we have here, I guess the first thing we need to find out is, you know, are you average, right? So how do you know if you're average or not? That's the big question. And so I guess we've got those things down, right? So we
Yeah,
have
Sterling, I was going to address the fact of saying that being average is not a bad thing, right?
uh-huh.
There is nothing wrong with being okay with the status quo and just kind of getting along to get along. I know that's getting along to get along, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I mean, people in this society where sometimes the media makes it seem like if you don't look this certain way, or if you don't act a certain way, if you don't do this certain thing, then you're, lesser than. So I think that's not what we're saying here. Is that there's nothing wrong with being average, but I'll say that I think that the people that tune into our podcast really want to do, they want more. They want more than just,
Right.
and that's not a problem either, right?
No, it's not a problem at all. I mean, you hit on the nose, Stephen. There's only a small percentage of the population that are that fall above average, which is why there's categories, and probably the big, a big median of people is just the average group, and that's the largest group out there. So there's nothing wrong with being average. But we're just going to talk about what those signs are, and then we're going to talk about what steps you need to do in order to become great.
Absolutely.
So here we go. Stephen, take us through the 6 steps or the 6 signs of being average.
I mean, and there are multiple signs, right? So there's so many signs that can kind of say that you're average. You know what, average, and again, nothing is wrong with average. But when we talk about, like, for instance, exercise, so Sterling is a big exercise kind of guy. But I think that statistics say that that typically you should be doing 2.5 to 5 hours of kind of medium aerobic activity per week, and the average person doesn't do that amount of aerobic activity. They do much less than that. So when you talk about just from the element of exercise, you would be average if you're doing less activity than that. So how many times a week are you working out now, man?
So I work out. So typically I work out at least 3 days a week. And when I work out, I do about 2 hours of training. So it's weight training for an hour, 30 minutes of cardio. And then after that is stretching.
Right.
I meditate in the sauna and then take a shower and done. So that's kind of been my routine for a while now. But I'll tell you what, we talk about going too hard, too quickly, too fast. What I would recommend to everyone is just try to do 30 minutes a day, just a brisk walk. Just try to just walk for 30 minutes every day, at least 5 days a week, and do that consistently. And you will be surprised how much of a difference it makes. It doesn't take a whole lot. So you don't have to work out for 2 hours every other day, but just try to do 30 minutes. That would be
absolutely good. And what about imposter syndrome, sir? What is that?
So imposter syndrome is those people that you see on Facebook, right? That really want to try to show you all these great things that they're doing, and they talk about all these amazing things. And really at the end of the day, though they're not really, they're imposters. They're not really living up to the expectations and to what you see. Someone that's above average is going to focus on transparency, and they are going to, if they want to be something more, they're going to work hard to do that instead of being an imposter and really just trying to make up this facade as if they are.
Absolutely. So. And then the other side of it, Sterling, is that some people they have a lack of confidence within themselves, and they feel as though they're being an imposter when they're trying to put themselves out there to be more than what they are. And so a lot of people really feel like they're not worthy, right? Just right. Feeling like they're not worthy of great things. And so that's kind of something that average people think, is that I'm just not worthy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Net worth. I think statistically, the average person has a net worth less than 6 figures, right? So less than $100,000 worth of net worth is on average what most Americans have. I know that a lot of our net worth comes from owning homes and real estate and, our investments and things of that nature. But it does take a concerted effort to make sure you build up a true net worth, especially when we're talking about the African-American community. I'm sure that the statistics in terms of net worth is even lower, right?
I mean, you bring up a good point, Steve. When we talk about net worth, we're not talking about your salary or what you bring home. It's your overall value. If you were to look at all the assets that you have, what does that amount to? And what we've seen and what we've researched is that if your net worth is above 100,000, then you're doing better than a large percentage of Americans. So that just puts you in the above average category. So, but if you're less than that, then that's a sign that you're in the, you're in the category with everybody else.
That's right.
And then debt, of course, most Americans have a large amount of debt. I think the average is what, 38,000, Stephen?
Exactly.
Excluding
your mortgage.
Including a mortgage.
Excluding,
yeah. $38,000 in debt, excluding your mortgage. So if your debt to income ratio is pretty high, then that's you're where everyone else is. But if you want to be great, you need to get your debt level down.
Right. And then just a feeling of being happy. We did the statistics, and it was just crazy that surveys. They've done a survey across Americans, and only 33% of people feel happy or report themselves as being happy. And that statistic, obviously, the amount of depression and unhappiness has gone down even more with the pandemic and inflation and all things that are going on politically in this world. And so the average person just isn't happy.
That's real.
Yeah.
And speaking of the average person is really, really willing to settle. They're just willing to settle for status quo. Whatever's going on right now, if it's paying the bills, and I just have to work from 8 to 5, then that's good enough for me. If that's the mentality that you have, then that's pretty much what the average mentality is. But if you want to be great, then you have to want more than just what's in front of you. What do you think, Steve?
Agree. So hey, let's jump into what it takes to be above average, what it takes to be great.
Awesome. So how to become above average. So we have 10 items, 10 steps. So we'll try to run through them pretty quick. Stephen, number 1.
Excuse me. Oh, and then Roy said something, made a comment, and encouraged you guys to comment out there. We definitely need your feedback on these topics. But Roy says, that's good, my brother. The love for mom is the best thing ever. God bless you, brother. Stay up. So God bless you as well, Roy. We appreciate the love and the support. So number 1, act on ideas. So the thing about acting on ideas, I know all of us have probably had the moment where we basically said, you know what, I had that idea first. Like that was that idea. They just opened up that new restaurant, or they just started a new whatever, but I had that idea first. And man, if I had just done that idea. But those that are great, those that are above average, they don't just kind of have the idea, they actually take action on it. Right, Sterling?
Good point. Spot on. Yeah, you got to act on those ideas.
That's it.
And number 2, don't waste time. If you want to be great and you're spending, 2 hours, 3 hours on Facebook every single day, if you are, instead of actually working on your goals, you're watching TV, watching, games, sports, whatever your entertainment, live, reality shows, then you're wasting time that could be used in a more productive way. And so just don't waste the time. And then the other thing about wasting time, we call it analysis paralysis. If you're wanting to do something, but it's taking you too long to actually move, to get back to that really acting on ideas, then you're wasting time. So you really need to say, okay, I've thought about this, I've planned long enough. I'm no longer going to waste time. I'm going to move forward and act. So
I love that. So one of the things that Sterling, you do a really good job about, and it's so, there's so many different technology, apps and different things that you can do now to make you more proficient and more, effective. It's crazy. But I love how you use that time, that drive time when you're going to and from work, to catch those audibles, to catch up on those books. And that's just another way of just saying, hey, instead of listening to the radio and just listening to some zoning out and just, whatever, let's use that time to grow, to learn to grow. And so I love what you do on that, sir.
I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of audibles and listening to audio books. And that's what Stephen is talking about. Audible is an app, a mobile app you can download on your phone, and then you can just listen to books that are read out to you. So if you're on the treadmill, if you're driving, you would just be really surprised that spending an hour a day maybe your commute back and forth to work is 30 minutes each way. That's an hour worth of reading that you're getting in. And if you do that consistently over a week and a half, you've finished an entire book. So it's a great way to get through a bunch of books and really kind of stimulate your mind and that kind of thing. So good stuff. Number 4. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, save for a rainy day. So, we talked about earlier about debt and having debt and, how that is kind of an average mentality. I think what has been said, and I can't remember all the percentages, but I think, your goal should be to save 30% of your income, to use 30% to live on, and to invest 30% of your income. I can't remember what the other 10% is, because that obviously doesn't add up to 100%. But maybe it's a third.
An accountant. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, Mr. CPA, MBA.
Hey man, don't call me out. Don't call me out. But it's supposed to be kind of like a 30-30-30. You live off of 33% of your income, you save 33%, and you invest 33%. And man, as a community, we definitely have to get away from this living paycheck to paycheck mentality. Definitely is not the attitude of someone who's an overachiever. That's kind of more of an average mentality, poverty mentality, unfortunately.
Right. So question for our viewers out there, if you have more than, let's say, $5,000 in your savings account, chime in, let us know. We don't need to know how much money you have in your account. Mm-hmm. But if you have more than $5,000 in your savings account, let us know and chime in, because you have saved for a rainy day. What they typically say is that you need to have 60 to 90 days worth of expenses and savings. So for everyone it's a little bit different, but you look at your utilities, your phone bill, your mortgage, what's that total amount? Multiply it by 2 or by 3. That's what you need to have in savings. So if you have $5,000 or more, chime in, give us a thumbs up or something like that. We've got a few comments here.
Yeah.
So Neith Knight, she says, hello, glad to be here. We're glad to have you here. Hey, Sean, good to see you as usual. Sean says, wait a minute, I can show these. He says, you absolutely have to do that. People rely on credit cards too much for rainy days. Absolutely, Sean, you were spot on. We got to save. And then Neith Knight says, would you all encourage to still buy the hard copy books of our Audible streams? Great question, Neith. So what I typically do is I get through a bunch of books pretty quickly on Audible. But if it's a great book, I want to use that as a reference, and I want to go back to it. I want to take notes, highlight all that kind of good stuff. So I go back and I'll buy the book, but not for all of them. It's just the ones that you really value. So
yeah, I agree. To me, and I love Audibles as well, but I just retain more when I read through a book manually, and like Sterling said, take notes on it. So if it's something really important to me, I'm definitely getting a hard copy and making those notes. So love it.
There you go. And Sean agrees. He says we do. And Miss Evelyn Stokes Bonner, Miss Bonner, she says she loves what both of us have become. Miss Bonner was one of my favorite teachers at Woolridge High School. And if I remember correctly, I think she taught typewriting, which is so crazy because we don't even use typewriters anymore. I don't even know if they teach typing at all, but it was such a powerful, I still remember my ADSF, JKL, semicolon, all that kind of good stuff. Anyway, amazing stuff. So hello to Miss Evelyn. I think I can call her Evelyn now. We're grown. But Miss Bonner, glad to have you on. Okay, let's jump back into it. Where were we, Steve? Were we on number 5 or number
4? Yeah. I think we were going to number 4.
Okay, so we better speed up. So I think you did that, the third one. So number 4, more action, less talk. Pretty straightforward. You need to be more about action instead of talking about it. I hear it all the time. I used to have so many great fans that always say, I wish I had this. I wish I had a brand new car. Mm-hmm. I wish I had a big house. I wish I had this, that, and the other. But what are you doing in order to get there? Stop talking about what you want and start putting the steps down and start putting the actions and start with the actions that are needed in order to do what you want in life. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, man. I love the term where people say, hey, real bosses move in silence. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I just think it's, I don't have to tell you about what I'm doing. You just let me show you what I'm doing. And so, yeah, that's definitely our mantra is all about action. So love it. Love it. Hey, Cheryl, I got a couple of comments that came
Okay.
through on my page. TK says, I order hard copies of business books because I have the option to make notes and highlight key points, just like you said, Sterling. And then she also mentioned that she's listening to a masterclass app right now during her drive into the city, and also
Love
while
it.
cleaning my house. So great way to maximize your time and increase your self development. So excellent comments, TK. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and just another shout out to TK, who I consider there are some of those folks out there that that you consider lifelong learners,
Yeah,
and I really love TK's tenacity. She's always trying to learn more, always growing. Never comfortable with the status quo. So some of those things we're talking about, TK, you are the epitome of what it means to be great. So keep doing what you're doing.
love it. Love
Okay,
it.
so number 5, don't focus on the past. So just because things didn't work out in the past, you don't want to focus on that. Every year we talked about how this year needs to be the best year ever. Put those things down as far as goals that you want. Create your vision board and start moving and focusing on the future. Don't focus on the past. We can't control the past. We can only control the future, right, Steven?
Man, that is such a pet peeve of mine. I hate complainers and people that just say, "Oh, but if this didn't happen to me when I was young," I'm gonna tell you, I think that if you ask, we talk about how every family has dysfunctionality, right? And I don't know, sir. Maybe we came up old school in a different generation, but I'm just
Right.
like, you being a baby right now. Like everybody
Right.
went through some kind of drama, went through something at a younger age or in the past. Get over that. It's time out for you using that as an excuse as to why you can't succeed now. And so it's a pet peeve of mine. And like I said, maybe I'm old school, but I think they're a bunch of pansies.
So like it is. So like it is. No, I really agree with you, Stephen. I think at some point we have to realize that this is what God has given us. This is our cards. This is what we've been dealt, and you got to figure out how to make the best of your hand. I mean, at the end of the day, so you may not have all spades like somebody else has, but you just have to make the best of your hand. You may not have a full house or whatever they say in poker. Okay.
Absolutely.
Moving on. Okay, number 6. Don't have lottery dreams. Steven, I remember you used to play the lottery all the time when we were younger. What happened to those days?
Man, I don't know what you think about. I have played the lottery on small occasions. Of course, when the lottery gets up to like 800 million, blah 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 blah. Okay, I'm like, okay, I'll put $1 in. I'll put $3. Why not? But
Yeah.
no, I think the average mentality says that I'm waiting for my big hit, right? It just as soon as I hit this lottery, I'm going to do this. As soon as I get this, I'm going to do this. Your success is dependent upon the miracle that's going to come up. And it also, man, this also ties into, and we can get deep, Sterl. I'm gonna go ahead and go here.
Go there,
But
go there.
it also ties into the people that say, "Hey, I'm just going to pray on it, and God is going to bless me." And no, God has blessed you with the skill set, with the mind, with physical use of your brain and your body to get out there and work and hustle and get it done. You sitting here praying for a blessing every day, but not putting in the work to get that blessing is, they have it in the Bible. Work without, what is it? I can't remember the term now. I'm going too deep.
I was about to be really impressed.
Yeah,
Go
it's gonna
ahead.
be impressed, weren't you? Almost had it, but it didn't come quite out. But anybody on Facebook that knows, or anybody out here looking, if you know where I'm going. But
I know
saying,
Blaylock knows. If Blaylock
yeah,
was on here, he
that
was
saying
a
about
huge
work
friend of ours.
without whatever. So, but the bottom line is that, hey, you guys, you got to work. You got to work.
Yeah.
We can pray and I love the Lord, but we got to put this work in.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When you look at the odds of winning the lottery versus what you can really do, if you put sweat equity in and put the work in, it just makes more sense just to put the work in. So good deal, good deal. Evelyn had a great question. She says she has over $10,000 in her savings account. Congratulations, Evelyn, for that. That's huge. She's asking for what she should do. So number 1, your rainy day fund should have up to 90 days of savings in it just for a rainy day. So
Mhm.
I don't know what your monthly expenses are, but you want to take that amount, 90 days worth, and subtract that from your $10,000 in savings. What you have left over is what you can really kind of play with, right? And so, you know, me personally, I think real estate is just king. And when you look over time, one of the best things that you can invest in is real estate. It will eventually appreciate, even if it goes down for a little bit, it'll go back up. So I would lean towards more real estate investments. A lot of people are really talking about cryptocurrency.
Right.
There's some definitely some opportunities there. But yeah, that's what I would recommend. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% on board with what you recommended. Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. So, hello to Anitra. I'm sorry, Anitra Woodside is in the house. Good to have you in, Anitra.
Absolutely. What's up, Anitra?
And
Niece saved me, Sterl. She saved me. Faith
she,
without work is dead.
yeah,
That's where I was going. Thank you, Nate. Just thank you for saving me.
yeah. I mean, if you think about it, God and we're getting real spiritual on this podcast. But when God gave the message and he told Noah that he needs to build an ark, Noah didn't just sit back and just wait for the ark to be built.
Exactly.
Noah went out there with his family and they worked on it for years to build this ark that was big enough to save, two of every single, species in the world. And that's what it comes down to. God is going to tell you what you need to do and give you the insight. But you still got to put the work in.
Preach.
Sorry.
Preach.
Sorry. We can go there. I should have been a pastor at some point in time in my life, in another life.
Exactly.
Another life. Okay. Where were we? We're getting distracted here. All right, Stephen, what's number 7?
So think outside of the box. And that's it's a cliche term and it's been used a whole lot. But the bottom line is that if you think the way that everyone else in your circle is thinking, then you're average, right? I mean, you want to think in a different manner. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. You got to think outside of the box. You got to come up with a different solution. You got to think of something different to succeed. And so I think definitely people that are above average, they're not in the kind of just the squad think. They have their own perspective and they think differently.
Yeah, that's spot on, Stephen. You talk about this all the time, and I love this. It's like what you say is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You figure out what somebody else is doing. You do the research, and then you figure out how can I do that differently. How can I do it differently than what's being done? And that's the differentiator. That's what makes you stand apart. So, good stuff. Good stuff. Number 8 out of 10, we're getting there. Number 8, take responsibility for your actions. This is really, really important, and I think that we as adults, as human beings, especially in this time, we don't want to take responsibility for anything. We want to blame everybody for what we couldn't do. It's somebody else's fault. It's the man's fault. It's because of somebody else's situation, what they've said or what they've done that's preventing me from attaining my greatness. But you have to take responsibility for your actions and know that what I do is directly proportionate to what I'm going to achieve. And so, if you're gonna sleep all day until 12 o'clock, you're gonna party all night, and then you're not getting the outcomes that you want. It's because you haven't done the work. Take responsibility for it. What do you think, Stu?
Man, this is something, and I hope that we do a podcast on this controversial subject because I've been thinking about this one. This is one I want us to talk about.
Okay.
But one of the, and this is speaking to the African American population, and I mean, actually just minority population in general, is that I think that with everything that's been going on, there's just too much of a reliance on racism as an excuse for not being able to get things done, or excuse for why I can't get ahead, or oh, they're just racist, and oh, this is just racist, and I can't. It just feels like an excuse to me. There's always a reason for someone to look differently at somebody for somewhere else. And maybe you're overweight, maybe you're short, maybe you drive a different kind of car. There's always these different things where people are going to look at certain people for a different reason. but you cannot wallow in those situations and say that the reason I can't get ahead is because of this. You're giving people the power to take control of your life, take responsibility of the fact that you have not made it successfully or done this because of the things that you didn't do, not what everybody else did to you.
So true. So true. Real well said. Number 9, finish your projects and finish your tasks. So it's one thing to say you want to do something, it's another one of those you have to put it to action and you have to get it to the point of completion. You're never going to finish every single task on your list. Stephen and I we always have these huge tasks, list of tasks. And we may not get through all of them, but every single day you're trying to get a few more completed, and you have to get to the point of completion, because if not, you're not going to be able to move forward. So really, really important that if you want to be great, you got to finish those projects. You got to finish the tasks. You got to achieve those goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then last but not least, number 10, if you want to be great, then you have to choose to not live an average life. So if we want to be great, it's a choice. If you want to be great, you make the choice, the decision to do the things, take the steps, do the action needed in order to be great, because it just doesn't happen by just saying, I want to be great. You got to make a conscientious decision and put the work in.
Absolutely. And, and like Sterling said, and I think we said it before, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. You're not an overnight success. It's those incremental, small little changes that make a difference, that make you just wake up one day and you're like, okay, this is not average stuff I'm doing right now. We look in the mirror and say, you know what? We're not built the same. We're different. Mm-hmm. There's levels right here, and we're operating on a different level. Right. And and I think that's also just going on to another subject, is that I think sometimes we as humans don't accept praise enough when we are doing something different, when we are achieving something. A lot of times we like to downplay that because we don't want to feel as though we're not being humble, or we're not being too self-engaged. But appreciate the things that you've done. Appreciate the fact that you put in the work to obtain a certain level of success, and it's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing. So we have, as right before we close, we should close out with some of these great comments. Miss Evelyn, Miss Bonner: can't burn the candle on both ends and expect to be successful. Stop making excuses. Have a purposeful life. That's a really good point, Evelyn. It is. You can't stay up all night. Play hard, work hard. But there's balance, right? So if you really want to achieve greatness, you got to be willing to put in the work, and you can't do it if you're doing negative stuff on the other side. So good stuff. And then Sean says, I see this in our younger folks. Not my fault, not my problem. You gave me a bad evaluation. You didn't tell me what to do. I gave my career to be takers. Preach, Sean, preach. I want a team so strong, no one knows who the leader is. And that's a really, really good point. So Sean, you're doing everything right, because tell you what, this society, everything is just changing. And people are not wanting to take accountability. Okay. And then Ellen says, and you guys are great. Thank you, Miss Bonner. You are amazing. Thank you for giving us the foundation. So it's because of you and so many others that helped to propel us to where we are today. Stephen, any final words before we go out on our outro?
No, just again, take a moment to kind of do a reevaluation, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, really, are you living out your potential? Are you reaching the level that you can reach based upon the skills that you have? What are you doing to be better? What are you doing to change your trajectory? And let's have a real come to Jesus moment, and then make the changes. It's never too late for anyone to be better.
Awesome. Great closing remarks, Stephen. And we will be back on next Thursday around 12:30 p.m. for Motivational Thursdays. Hopefully by that time we'll have changed our screen to reflect the right day of the week. But until next time, we'll end with a great little video for everyone. Here we go.